Hello everybody and welcome to another Twilight Zone review. Today it is Season 3, Episode 6, The Mirror, written by Rod Serling and starring Peter Falk as Ramos Clemente. And the best thing I can say about this episode is that I'm done watching it, and hopefully I won't have to watch it again after I do this review. This is an awful Twilight Zone episode, easily one of the worst up to this point, and let me just say that Rod Serling is a great writer, and Peter Falk is a great actor, in my opinion, but they both fall very flat here. So we start with our main character, Clemente, and he's in a good mood because it appears he's just won some kind of revolution, even though they don't really tell us what it is. And the people are screaming his name, and everything seems to be going well. He's there with some of his men until he throws a glass at a painting, which must have been the leader of the old regime, I'm guessing. So we find out, that he was leading against some kind of tyranny, even though he doesn't seem too stable himself, in my opinion. So we go to the next scene and they bring in a man, and I'm guessing he was the leader of the old regime, and Clemente's screaming at him. All this guy does is scream, way overacted by Peter Falk. And he says that he's going to do all these things to him, strip him and tie him up and do other things. These don't sound very much different than the things that he was trying to avoid from the old regime. This is all ridiculous and way over the top. So he keeps ridiculing this guy, and the man comes back at him. He won't really give in. He just, he warns him the same thing's going to happen to you and all this other uninteresting stuff. So Clemente slaps the man and pretty much proves everything the man says right about him. So that's great. And then, he tells him that he will have a lot of fear of all these different things, fear of people coming after him, etc., 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 which will all come true. And we find out that there is this mirror in the room, and the man warns him that, you'll be able to see all your potential assassins or enemies in this mirror. So this makes Clemente even more paranoid than he already was. So he's arguing with some of his men, who don't seem to be too happy about his new attitude with the power he has. And he's, questioning one of his men that he sees in the mirror at this point. The other men are gone. And when he sees the man's face in the mirror, he immediately freaks out and throws the guy out the window. Then we go to the next scene, and he's questioning why the people are upset. They're not chanting his name anymore, and he doesn't understand it. Maybe it's because you just threw a guy out a window for no reason. Just saying, none of this makes any sense. So we go to a scene where he's with the rest of his men, and he sees a couple more guys in the mirror. So he figures, I'll do it a little more sneaky this time, I guess. And he sends two of them off, saying he's concerned about, the prisoner that's supposed to be executed. The man from the old regime. So he sends them off, and then he calls, and says, I want these two guys gotten rid of, which happens later in the episode. So he's left in his room with only one of his men, and we get all these boring speeches about power and about how you have no friends, only enemies when you're a leader. And I don't know if, that's always true. I think that's a little exaggerated. I get the point, but it's over the top like everything in this episode. And the other man in the room with him calls him demented. And Clemente admits that he is. So, hey, who's to argue with him? That's about the only thing that makes sense in this episode. So we get more talking about the same stuff. At this point, I really just want this episode to end because there's no likable characters, and it's just uninteresting and contrived and way over the top. So of course he sees the last man in the mirror, who warns him he might not always be his friend. He might take over when the time is right, which is really smart when a guy has already had 3 other men killed. Oh boy, just completely no logic in this episode. So he, of course, shoots the last guy, who then tells him it takes him forever to fall down. He tells him he's now all by himself. None of this is remotely interesting. So we finally, mercifully come to the last scene where a father comes in and, to see him. And he says, the people are upset about all the executions. Gee, I wonder why that would make people upset. And, he says, as long as I have enemies, The executions will continue. This guy's way gone at this point. And of course, the message is the one real enemy is himself. So then we see that, he sees himself in the mirror smashes. We hear a shot, I think it's a shot, who knows, and he's gone, he's dead, saving us all the misery from any more time in this episode. My big question is, with all the other things I've mentioned, how was this guy ever even a leader of a revolution? He has the same exact personality as the people he was complaining about. Did he just change just like that when he got in power with no warning? Did the mirror make him that paranoid? None of this makes any sense. It's just a bad, over-the-top episode. It's very stereotypical with an in-your-face message. We get it. The bad guy gets what's coming to him. None of this is remotely interesting, and like I said, very little logic. This may be my least favorite episode so far. I actually wanted to turn it off about 3 times, and at only 25 minutes, that's not good. So this one's a failure. You should definitely skip it, and I give The Mirror a 1 out of 5. So 1 out of 5 for The Mirror. Thanks for sticking with me through this one, guys. Thanks for watching.